What's often referred to as the AAP's election model has been a lot to do with freebies also that Kejriwal has announced in the election cycle, this time being no different, considering that they've promised doles for women and also, of course, free medical treatment for citizens above 60, besides a slew of other freebies that have been announced. It's not something new to Indian politics, but Arvind Kejriwal's style of politics in the national capital of free water, free electricity has grown much beyond that into so many other freebies that we're listing out for you. I explain in our next report the cost of these freebies, how it started and how it's taken root in the national capital. It's election season in Delhi and the focus is once again on Revdi culture or freebie culture. The Aam Aadmi Party has announced free water, free power, free healthcare and whatnot. But let's now decode for you the history of freebie culture in India and if this kind of politics actually hurts the country's economy. Freebies, the practice of handing out doles to people, has become a practice, a norm, a part and parcel every election season. So let's tell you how this started and how it's become intrinsic to Indian politics. First, let's start with the basics. What does the term freebie actually mean? Essentially, that something is being given free of cost. I'm sure you've heard the word Revdi a lot before, and if you're wondering what it is, it's the Hindi word for freebies. But it's important here to make a distinction between the types of freebies, between welfareism and a freebie. So what's the difference? I'll highlight it using examples. Now, promising free education, offering midday meals, that's a welfare scheme, that's welfareism being pushed. Giving free cycles, TVs, mixers, grinders, those are all outright freebies. So let's now talk about the history of freebies in India, for which we have to go back in time to the 1950s. It was in Tamil Nadu first that we saw freebies actually taking root. K. Kamaraj, then Chief Minister of erstwhile Madras State, introduced SOPs like free education and free meals for school students. And then every leader in Tamil Nadu followed suit, upping the ante essentially also on these kind of promises and schemes. In 1977, Dr. MGR, as Chief Minister, used midday meals to attract more children to school. And to date, the scheme is active in Tamil Nadu and, of course, has been emulated by almost every state in the country today. But it was also Tamil Nadu that moved beyond welfareism. Free TVs, mobiles, cycles, grinders, mixies, you name it, it was offered in party manifestos and has become a part and parcel of Dravidian politics. It's worked in wooing voters, but the welfare schemes also that Tamil Nadu parties focus on have helped in ensuring that the economy of Tamil Nadu isn't dented. And it was bound to become a national talking point as well, because regional parties, most of them now offer freebies. I'll give you a few examples. Naveen Patnaik's 1 rupee per kilo rice scheme in Odisha. Nitish Kumar's free bicycle scheme for school-going girls in Bihar. Jay Lalita's distribution of 8-gram gold for brides. Mamata Banerjee's cash incentives for girls and health insurance scheme in West Bengal. Subsidized food grains by Yogi Adityanath in Uttar Pradesh. And then in Delhi, free electricity, water from Arvind Kejriwal's government in Delhi was promised years ago and continues now. The AAP, interestingly, in 2015, when it came to power with a promise of free water and free power, cracked that code of freebies. And since then, every party has attempted to emulate the model to woo voters in state polls and in national polls too. For example, the Congress's 5 guarantees that it promises in every state. The BJP has claimed that they're against freebie politics. Prime Minister Modi has repeatedly spoken out against this freebie culture and has said it's dangerous for the country. But now, looking at the BJP's manifestos in, let's say, Haryana or Jharkhand, the BJP essentially has modelled freebies as welfareism, but has also promised doles to vote banks. So let's ask the crucial question here. Who pays for these freebies? Well, the answer to that is simple. You do. It is unfortunately the state exchequer that pays for freebies, and in states where the economy can handle it, it doesn't feel a pinch, there isn't a dent. It's a whole other story, however, when states are already financially crippled. The cost of these freebies for some states is estimated to be as high as 96,000 crore rupees or 2.2% of a state's GDP. Let's take a look at some of these examples. Freebies or subsidies in Maharashtra could cost the state up to 960 billion rupees, or about 2.2% of the GDP in the state. In Karnataka, it's about 1.9% of the state GDP. Telangana, it's about 352 billion rupees, roughly 2.2% of the GDP of the state. But what do all these numbers mean? Essentially, that there's very little room for development. In Karnataka, the Congress government has admitted repeatedly that they have no money for development because they have to fulfill their guarantees, and therefore they've hiked up prices of essentials. What that means effectively is that you're actually paying for these so-called freebies one way or another. In poll-bound Delhi, Kejriwal has announced 1,000 rupees per month for women, which is projected to cost 4,560 crores annually. With that, Delhi's subsidy bill nears 11,000 crores, which means in the next financial year, Delhi is actually staring at a budgetary deficit. But who cares? Because it's getting votes. So are there any guidelines? Who draws the lines essentially on freebies? Let me highlight here what the Supreme Court said on December 9th, 2024 on freebies, and I'm quoting here. For how long can freebies be given? Why don't we work to create job opportunities, employment and capacity building for these migrant workers? Now, there have been multiple petitions before the Supreme Court. They exist even now, seeking restrictions on freebies. And the top court in the past repeatedly has put the onus on the Election Commission. The EC on its part has said it's impossible to curb what parties mentioned in the manifesto, but has issued guidelines. So under its MCC, which is Model Code of Conduct Guidelines, the Election Commission has said, and I quote, "In the interest of transparency, level playing field and credibility of promises, it's expected that manifestos also reflect the rationale for the promises and broadly indicate the ways and means to meet the financial requirements for it. Trust of voters should be sought only on those promises which are possible to be fulfilled." But is the above followed? Not really, as political parties have never actually disclosed the cost of freebies they promise or the repercussion it has on the state economy.